So first of all, thanks OMG for joining me. It's a pleasure to have you on the channel to talk quickly about Black Ice. Discussion here with OMG about Black Ice version 10.4 and some of the major changes that are going on in the release of this new version. Now, how long have you been working on the mod, OMG, and are you happy for me just to call you the lead dev?
Hello everyone, answering your question, I don't know, 5 years as a developer, developer sounds fancy, as a humble modder. And back in the day when Panzeru was still in charge, I was testing the game extensively. I was sitting on the test version all the time and playing it over and over again, finding out bugs, some stuff with balance and all that. Total probably I don't know, 7 or 8 years. Yeah, I played this game basically from its launch.
Give a quick rundown of how many team members there are now.
6 or 7?
6 or 7. Hey,
yeah,
that's pretty good.
Let me quickly go through the list. It will be Dosed, Herf75, Libik, me, Das Gleich, Tan.
But I just wanted to establish sort of the main team, and then, that sort of talks about that, because on my Discord a few of you guys have joined, and thank you for joining. I'm sure that you won't mind answering a couple of the questions from the guys that watch the channel. But as I said, this is a very quick video because I want to run down some of the very basic and major changes that are happening on 10.4 from 10.33. I think we'll start with something that's quite probably the one of the bigger ones, shall we say. I think the airbase structure change that is quite basic on paper, but as far as I'm aware, each level now holds up to 4 planes, and a level 10 airbase therefore would hold 40 plane wings.
As far as a player is concerned, you build airbases the way you used to do, just go to the province window, build airbase, and simply your airbase will grow by 4, not by 1 when it's finished.
Brilliant. And so is that also reflected on an IC change? So does that cost more to do that, or is it still the same?
They are a bit more expensive, but I also didn't want it to make them linear increase, 4 times more expensive, because then it's first of all it will kind of discourage player from building big air bases, because it will take 6 IC over a year or something like this, and in situation when you need to build 20 or 30 air bases.
Yeah. If I was to feed back something, I've always thought that the airbase structure, bearing in mind the amount of planes that you can build in Black Ice, I think improving it and increasing the amount of planes that you can have on airfields is a pretty big improvement. It will definitely help in places like Asia as well, where you've got
exactly.
less airbases.
Because, for example, I personally absolutely love having lots of airplanes to manage. So having more air bases helps that, and it also helps AI a lot, especially if you think about places like Asia, Russia, Pacific.
I think that's a really major one. It's quite a small thing, but I think that is going to change the way the game plays with 10.4 compared to 10.33 pretty substantially.
All other stuff related to that works normally. The only thing I had to change was those events that increase air bases.
Okay, so that's where you do the tech, isn't it? To build them up.
Because what it was doing was when you had airbase level 10, it was increasing it to 15, 20, then 40, 50, and so on. Of course, now it won't do that. Well, kinda does, but not really.
So are those techs still in there then? But it just
the tech is still there, but what it will do, it will find, for example, the first level it will find a airbase that it's higher than level 2 but not higher than level 8, and will simply increase it by 2 points.
Hey, okay, well, I mean,
so basically 3 airbases here.
Yeah, so. I think that's probably fair enough. I think it's a better way of doing it. I mean, the tech way, doing the tech and then waiting on decisions was a little bit clunky, wasn't it? Doing it this way is going to be a little bit less clunky.
Well, unfortunately, you still need to wait for decision.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I didn't change that.
Oh well.
Maybe one time in the future I will make it maybe like this, that so once you research the tech, you hit the decision, and you have a list of events to pick from or something like this.
Maybe for version 10.8.
In 2036.
Perfect. So submarine rework.
Yeah,
Do you wanna? I know this is still somewhat in sort of testing phase, but I know that you enjoy a submarine rework more than any other part of the game. So
well, yeah,
take it away.
I do that every version. So yeah, but the thing is that what we realized like maybe a year ago, actually, when we were doing 10.0, that all those values that are set up in the fines Lua in common folder regarding like surprise attack bonus simply don't work for submarines. They were like broken all the time. That's why all our balancing attempts were basically pointless.
Failed.
Like yeah, it was like falling apart at some point and no one knew why, and then we figure out that the fines Lua simply doesn't work in terms of submarines. But recently Dosed was like messing around with Lua, and suddenly they started work.
Well,
I'm completely like zero knowledge about how to edit Lua and stuff like that. Only basics, like put number here and don't explode the whole game. But yeah, even he couldn't tell like what he actually did to make them work.
You might have stumbled across it, but at least I mean, a lot of the greatest discoveries of mankind have come from stumbling onto things. So hey. In this case, why not? As long as it works, it works. I mean, just quickly, ideally, how do you want submarines to work ideally? Do you still want to go down the surprise chance route and using that as the main combat modifier, and then obviously still being the principal trade interdiction ability? Is that really what you're going with?
Go the path that the game allows us to, because the perfect solution would be like submarine. If submarine fails to trigger surprise chance, it should retreat.
Yeah.
If anyone ever played Silent Hunter, for example, if you are attacking convoy and escort ships spotted you, you were simply retreating. You didn't go on with your suicidal attack at this point. But in Hearts of Iron, we unfortunately cannot simulate it like that. So once you are in combat, you are in combat for the next few hours. So what we'll have to do is find a balance between submarines having so high sea attack normally that they won't decimate the enemy fleet over those few hours, but also low enough or high enough, depends how it ends, surprise attack bonus to not explode enemy fleets in first hour of the combat, because they happened to have surprise attack bonus.
Okay, and then just following on from that quickly then, what about visibility of submarines? Is that still being kept as much as it can?
That also needs extra testing, because like a few months ago when Dosed found out the surprise thingy, I was doing some quick submarine rebalancing, and I kind of suspect that visibility for all ships, not only submarines, is capped at 1 plus 1.
Okay.
That means that right now we have some like motor torpedo boats, for example, have minus 30.
Yeah.
But from what I gathered, it might still be capped at 1, no matter what value you put there. Like it can be like minus 100, and it still be treated as 1 as a game. So we need like some extra tests about that actually.
Okay.
But the problem is that we don't have access to any code, so it will be all guess basically.
Yeah, I mean there's not much you can do, is there, about that? You just have to keep trying things until you get something that sort of makes a little bit of sense.
Yeah. Basically spot some patterns in the how the battle progress.
Okay, so I think we can naturally segue then into something that I think Dose has done in relation to naval treaties. The naval treaties is the London naval treaty thing that you get I think it's one of the first decisions in the game, and you can probably correct me if I'm wrong there, but I'm pretty sure it is. It sounds like they'll actually be fixed now, and from game start there'll be a first London naval treaty effect, and then the second one as well that adds to that in relation to carriers. Now, I'm not sure you're too aware of this one. It sounds like Doze just kept you out the loop on this one.
Yeah, he kind of like, hit me in the back of the head with that. But the first treaty mostly limits submarines, except for Germany.
Yep.
because Germany at the time had secret programs
Yeah.
regarding submarines. And second one limits like bigger ships, but it still will allow players to research text. It still allows you to keep text up to date, because the way previous ones worked, you were ending up with, like, you know, the treaty ended in like mid 37, and you were still stuck to like text 4 or 5 years older, which was later hard to catch up, and, you know, before you finish the ship and all that. So in the end, you were like good 6-7 years behind on various technologies because of that.
I think as Britain especially, if you were playing, I mean, it is historical from a standpoint of, obviously, you know, British, they tried to stick to the naval, you know, arrangements as much as possible, but it was a problem if you were playing a Britain campaign and you were trying to build a cruiser-based Britain. It was, especially if you're doing cruisers, it was a problem. Let's put it like that.
Yeah.
So I'm glad
it was too limiting.
Speaking of naval treaties and maybe nations which didn't stick to naval treaties particularly, we have Japan, which has gone through a pretty major rework and a major overhaul. So should we just sort of... I mean, the main things that I'm aware of are a pretty major overhaul of unit cards, units in general, divisional HQs, and also the leaders.
Probably now Japan, when it comes to that area of the game, is more complete than Germany.
Wow.
Yeah. Because it's not me who did that. It was Herv and Liebig. But it's like... How many did they add? 1,600 new generals?
I think it's something like 1,600 generals over the course of 1936 to 45.
So all unique counters for all units, basically for all historical units, build-ups and all that, like, you know, unit events the same way as Germany has them. So yeah, Japan will feel completely different now. So if someone got used to playing Japan a certain way, it might require some relearning.
I think that's
also
the fun
considering
of it.
other changes. So.
That's the fun of it. That's the fun of when you get a new version. I think learning how to... I mean, although to be fair, I sort of just do whatever the fuck I want when I play Hearts of Iron 3 with Black Ice, and everyone in the comments tells me I'm stupid, so, you know, there's swings and roundabouts to that, but I quite like just trying new things, so I'm quite happy with new stuff. I mean, there's a new change to the order of battle that Japan starts with as well, and there was something quite minor. I think you've removed the Navy build queue that Japan starts with, I think, as well, to hopefully promote the AI building a few more land units for the China campaign.
Yeah. So AI simply gets all those starting ships completed in 37.
There's been some rework as well of some of the inter-service rivalry mechanics, as that sounds like it's been added in as well to more accurately simulate the inter-service rivalry between the Navy and the Army. Is that correct? That's come in as an event network?
Yes, something like this was added, but I'll be honest with you, I haven't browsed those events yet, so I can't give you any details here, unfortunately.
That's fine.
Because, as I said, like they added lots of stuff to Japan. Like it's. I'm actually surprised. I don't know. Are they like unemployed or something? And they have like, I have no idea.
There has been a lockdown. I don't know if you've witnessed it.
Yeah, I know. I noticed.
I think if we were to summarize it, we would be saying that Japan now has got the same level of detail as Germany. I think that's a good way of putting it.
Like probably misses few like flavor events, like Germany have Olympics and stuff like that. But you know, other than that, like.
But on a gameplay standpoint.
From gameplay standpoint, it's probably on par with Germany now.
And then for my own sanity, it sounds like the Republic of China Nanjing has been given a starting order of battle and things, because when I puppeted Nanjing in my Japan campaign on 10.33, I was fucking disappointed by the
you got nothing.
You got literally nothing, and it was useless. And even when they started pumping out units, they were still useless. So at least they get something now. So Libic let me know that there's been some work done for the foreign troops that the UK receives. So this is all the government in exile type troops. And also British Indian Army trait that's been added as well. So hopefully that'll more accurately, show the impact of the sort of multicultural British Army in the post-1940 sort of world. We're coming on, I think, now. So those are the sort of things that the general mod team have done over the course of, since the release of the last version. And those are
There's more.
There's way more. There's way more, but those are some major things. But these are some things that you specifically have picked out now. So no more 8th Brigade. Buy superior firepower.
Goodbye superior firepower. I kind of had this idea for some time. Didn't know how to exactly implement it. It's actually more logical because with 8 brigades, quite common practice is to skip transport brigade. Okay. And you end up with division that has 7 combat brigades. So basically with 7 combat brigades you can cover almost all combined arms groups.
Right.
So you pretty much end up with a division that is good at absolutely everything.
Right, okay. So it's a gameplay thing to try and balance things a little bit better.
Yeah, it's, let's be honest, it's unrealistic. It's kind of against the idea that you need to make choices.
Yeah.
Like you need to decide on the division composition, like you need to actually think about that instead of like slapping 8 separate units there. Just remember to add HQ and boom, you're set. Division good at absolutely everything.
I think
so. I
think definitely, because the thing is, right, at the moment, if you have an 8 brigade unit, as you're saying, you can make effectively an army of just uniform units that will probably be as good as pretty much building anything that's specialized. So, by doing this, it does sort of make the player have to force them to specialize in certain ways. Do you want units that are fast but maybe aren't quite as powerful, exploitation? Do you want breakthrough units? It adds a little bit more like that. And then specializations towards like, having some anti-air capability and things. I think it makes more sense to do that. Restriction isn't always a bad thing. Sometimes it promotes, a better gameplay experience, doesn't it?
Yeah, because like when you have access to 8 brigades, like, quick question to everyone, like, did you ever consider not adding 8 brigades and 8 brigade being assault guns or heavy AA? You didn't.
No.
You just built them, you slapped them, and you had simply better division, no matter what kind of division that was.
I must say, whenever I built 8 brigade units, I generally put heavy AA in them. Do you know what I mean? It was the thing left over.
Yeah. Another problem is AI can't do that. So we can either allow AI to build like, superior firepower divisions from the very start, which
isn't balanced.
Which isn't balanced because player doesn't have access to this technology for like first 4 years of the game unless he does some tech rushing.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, AI is like pumping out 8 brigade divisions, and later when it accidentally builds some 7 brigades or has them in starting order of battle, it can't upgrade them to 8 because, well, it's AI.
So, branch-specific training laws. Now, this is in relation to that annoying event that you get at the start of every year where it asks you what sort of training you want. Is that the one I'm thinking of?
Yes and no. So we have 3 new laws. Training law is simply renamed to land units training law, and we also get 2 additional ones for naval units and air units. But they actually don't increase statistics or build time anymore. They simply trigger specific technologies that are doing that, increasing training time, giving extra statistics to units and all that. And the decision that you were talking about is also turned from decision to new law right now.
Okay.
So previously you had conscription laws, and you had volunteer, 1-year draft, 2, 3, and service by requirement.
Yes.
So it's kind of it's kind of illogical in that sense that you can still have volunteers who are serving 1, 2, 3 years. So volunteers are in something that is now called like I don't remember how it's named, but it's like another conscription law in which you pick exactly the things that you were picking in that decision you're talking about, the national recruit system
Okay.
or policy. So you pick if you want volunteers, you want normal draft. That description basically says something like, you draft people like, from 18 to 20 year, like, able men and stuff like that. Then you have extended conscription that takes people from various parts of industry and stuff like that. It gives small bonuses and penalties and stuff like this, increases your manpower. You have extended conscription that takes even older people to the military, and emergency when you are like,
And
completely...
as you progress through each one of these, let's not use the word progress. I assume there's obviously negatives and positives to each of these. I mean, obviously the emergency one I would assume is going to have the highest manpower impact, but I imagine there'll be quite a massive impact to dissent and your production side of things. Is that right?
The way it works like now, it's like each law has its own set of bonuses and penalties.
Yeah.
And also certain combination of laws, actually most of combinations of those laws are triggering strategic effects.
Okay.
So for example, random numbers. Let's say one law reduces industry by 5%. You combine it with another law that reduces industry by 5%. And together, when you have those two particular laws in place, let's say it will be 3-year draft and extended conscription. So you are drafting people for 3 years into the military.
Yeah.
And you are taking basically everyone who can walk. So those two laws will trigger a strategic effect that gives additional penalties, because not only you're taking everyone into military from like, factories, farms, mines, like all kinds of industry, like, teachers, students, doesn't matter, here's the rifle. So not only you are drafting everyone, but also for a long period of time, 3 years, so this hurts your industry even more.
Okay, is there a variation on that as well in relation to letting women join the army or letting women join the production?
Work in progress.
Okay.
Here. Because I want
Because different nations obviously would have different laws on that. Like the UK would, women working in the factory would be okay, but Germany would be a little bit more, unless things were really bad, maybe you don't get that event or decision.
I don't think we'll go like right away with like country specific, because as I learned with other stuff during making 10.4, it's really time consuming. When we get to ministers, I will explain exactly why.
So this leads in then to another law rework, and that's in relation to the economy laws. So what exactly has happened with those then? So we're still seeing war economy, and I mean effectively you stuck it on war economy, and then when you went to war you put it on the next one up, and then for the industry emphasis you had it on mixed industry, and then you bumped it up to heavy industry, and then sort of that was it.
Well, to put it simple, the highest law is now not always the best law.
Okay.
For example, if you are not at war economy will come with massive penalties.
Right. Because
you are not at war. Just as an example, like Germany didn't fully mobilize its industry until 43, 44.
Yeah. By
game standards, they were sitting on full mobilization maybe instead of total economic mobilization.
Yeah.
Normally, as Germany, for example, let's stick to that example. Basically, as soon as you could, which was second day of the game, you were switching to war economy, and voila, done with laws for the rest of the game. Basically, you have the best law access. Now, if you do that, expect plus 35% consumer goods. It's also an attempt to unnerve democratic countries. Full civilian economy came by default with 12.5% penalty to IC efficiency, which is a lot.
So it's an attempt to sort of balance things a little bit more and actually get the player to think about what laws they actually want to put forwards, rather than just picking the basic one. Yeah.
It's not perfect, of course, because we are kind of limited here with the things that law actually can affect. There are combinations that will simply be better than than others.
For
Yeah, for
every
example, when you have industry policies, you have civilian economy, mixed industry, and heavy industry. So it's no longer, just slap heavy industry, even as Soviet Russia.
Wow.
It's not just go with heavy and, whatever, don't touch this tab for the rest of the game. Of course, once you are at war, you will still go with war economy or total mobilization and, highest law.
So, just following on from that then, there's a science minister type change and in relation to events around that. So can you just give a bit of background? Are we talking like Manhattan Project, jet engines, things along those lines?
Yes. There's a new type of minister, science minister. All majors plus some minors have some unique for them. For example, Germany has Werner von Braun, Willy Messerschmitt, UK has Turing, Japan has Hiraga, guys who were amazing in their field, like Russia has some tank designer, sorry I forgot his name, the guy who designed T-34.
Yes.
Yeah. You can Google
Yeah.
that. Yeah. Of course, like some countries have more than others because, well, they are historical, so that's the way it is.
Yeah.
Some minister types, tech specialist, for example, were moved from head of intelligence to science minister because, well, this is the guy responsible for science, not for intelligence. So they had to be shifted around.
That's a major improvement.
Yeah. And science ministers are actually triggering events now. So, for example, if you put as a science minister guy who gives only penalties, when you open the tab, he will give penalty to IC, to money, to resources. This is exactly the guy that occasionally will trigger event that spawns science building in your country.
Okay, I see. So that'll actually spawn the research center type places.
Yeah.
Okay.
This one will require some kind event that will introduce and explain the whole system because, well, if you just look at the minister and see only penalties, you won't put him as your minister because that's simply stupid. and you won't know that he spawns all those buildings because no one told you. Yeah, but for example, if you put a minister that is tank specialist as a minister, then you will get, after a few days, event that will ask you about the budget you want to assign to tank research.
Right. And then that will provide tech points, will it, to the tank specific tech tree?
Exactly. Every 2 or 3 months, I actually don't remember
a bit like the university event when you if you pick to get the research university, from the National Monumental Architecture building.
Yeah, but it won't be random. Once you put a minister in a position, you assign him a budget. Every 2 months, you will get an event informing you that you get this and this much progress in certain technologies.
Hey, that's really good.
And it's not a random value. It's if you assign this amount of money, you will get this big progress. If you assign more money, then you will get bigger progress because actually that random stuff doesn't work.
Brilliant. And then with regards to the money, then it also gives another reason to generate money.
Yes.
Right.
I need to kind of bump up the buildings, events, and stuff like that generates money because with those penalties are kind of piling up. And it actually might be difficult to be physically capable of having enough money to fuel all that because all new laws are giving some penalties and stuff like that. So we need to kind of rebalance that area too.
Okay, but that's something that you can work on going forwards. So
that won't be a big issue because it's just changing few values here and there.
So that almost leads a little bit into the buildings overhaul thing. So, as part of that buildings overhaul, what exactly has been done on that front?
Oh God. Okay, so first of all,
just give it give it an overview. Let's put it like that.
You can't. Yeah. Okay. So I will kind of start from. Oh, actually, I will go here. Buildings no longer reduce the build time of units. So if you have tank factory, it doesn't reduce the build time of units, because at some point it was like, especially late game, as an aggressive country, let's say Germany or Russia, it was leading to situations when you could build like, heavy tank divisions in 52 days, because you gathered in your country so many tank factories that the build time was simply, well, insane. What tank buildings, all factories now do, we actually have like lots new ones. What they do is actually the game calculates how many do you have.
Yeah.
But the only one on your core provinces are being taken into account.
Right, I see. Okay.
So only the ones that you build. Eventually, if you would take into account places like brain fart. What was the name of that area in France that is German cores on Marginot line?
Oh, the Alsace-Lorraine.
Alsace.
Lotharingen.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know what you're referring to. The Alsace-Lorraine region, the border region.
Yeah, this will be counted too, because, well, those are German cores. So, and game will calculate those buildings, and there will be like I still don't know how it will be displayed to player. I need to come up with something that will be clear and not confusing. So yeah, but player will be told. Actually, no, you are told by strategic effects already. How many factories do you have of each type? Like basically, like all buildings, hospitals, science centers, tank factories, small, medium, heavy plane factories,
right?
All kind of shipyards. Like, strategic effects will tell you how many do you control.
And then off the back of that, do you get bonuses and different, impacts to like your IC, etc. based on that? Is that what you're going for?
The buildings will trigger technologies. It will be a hidden tech that will reduce both. Actually, no, not time, only cost.
Okay. A bit like the techs that are currently, I think the industry tab that do small arms factory.
Yes,
like
I actually used those as a base for that. So of course you have techs that reduce the cost, but if you lose those buildings, like for example you have 10 tank factories in the province and enemy capture that, you also have a tech that reverse that effect.
Does it therefore simulate the impact of strategic bombing as well, if they get broken?
Unfortunately, no.
Oh, okay. Well, you can't have everything, can you?
No, I was like, I spent like good few weeks trying to come up with something that could simulate that, but I decided that okay, it's not something that is fully realistic, but as far as I'm concerned, you can still bomb IC.
Yep.
And you won't be able to build stuff at all with IC, even supplies and all that.
Yeah.
And it's still better than, in like late game having tank divisions that are built in a month.
Yeah, it's an improvement on that, isn't it, compared to that?
Yeah, I think it's a worthy trade-off to have here. Like, it's not perfect, but it's still better than we have now.
Okay, perfect. So following on from that then, there's a little bit of a thing to do with weather effects. So is that to do with the impact of things like snow and rain, etc. on combat?
Not those. What I meant by that were those fort buildings that you get from events. Deep snow, deep mud, monsoon.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Yeah. So what I did actually was reducing the fort level, so combat will be easier in those horrible conditions. But to kind of balance that out, to make sure that combat during winter or monsoon is not too easy and fast paced, you also get movement penalties in those provinces.
So effectively, let's say then I'm playing Germany and I'm moving into the Soviet Union. Rather than getting like the modifier which makes combat be at like 1%, you can still do combat. It's just that your pace of movement is going to be much more difficult. Is that about right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
There are still, of course, those penalties, like fort penalties, but I think I reduced them to like 1/3 of the old ones.
Perfect. So it will actually be possible to sort of, expand a little bit more easily during winter months. You just have to be a little bit more careful about how you do that expansion.
Yeah, you can still fight. Just moving will be hard.
Okay.
And slow.
And then following on from that combat aspect then, so all XP related events in relation to, I think, is that leaders and the way that leaders gain their experience?
For now, it's only leaders because, that's one thing I forgot to mention with training loss, actually, since all experience was simply named to combat experience. Okay. So all units by definition start with 0.
Brilliant.
So this will require some tweaking because if you get reinforcements with 0 combat experience, then the experience of the unit will drop down drastically. So now if we have no such bonuses on loss, it will have to be a bit like tweaked so you actually can get experienced units. But all plus experience related effects on generals were nerfed greatly because it was leading to situations when you could have like whole army of units with 100% experience. Yeah, and even if you suffered horrible losses, those units were still staying at 100% because that's how the game works, unfortunately. Well, worked, not anymore. Yeah.
But that's somewhat fixed then. So that's good. Yeah. So those are, I think, the main list of things that we did want to go through. That's thanks for taking the time to go through those. In relation to minor changes, obviously each time you release a new version of the mod, there's obviously bug changes and sort of a basic set of things that you guys are wanting to make sure.
There's
fixed.
Lots of minor stuff, so
So I mean, I'm going to pick out a couple of minor things. I touched on one earlier, and I'm just going to list these. I'm not, some of the basic things. Colonial powers can build colonial infantry and colonial cav. That's a really good one. Some AI tweaks, just based on how the AI produces things and how puppets in particular, I think, act.
For example, now those set up AI in such way that it can actually build resource buildings.
Brilliant. So that's a good change, because that also gives more reason to create puppets, because in my games I create lots of puppets and everyone says to me there's not much point doing that, and I'm like, I agree, there isn't at the moment. So I'm glad that there'll be some changes to make puppets a little bit more point.
Now you can also affect what puppet is focusing on.
Good.
We have like series of events that actually are telling puppet what to build.
Good. So that means I can live out my my British campaign where I just puppet everything.
And what I also want to do is like expand this counting system for factories to give players some benefit from puppets too, because you can tell your puppet to build stuff for you.
Brilliant.
Sounds logical, I guess.
Yeah, it does sound logical.
So when I will have some time, I will actually add that stuff. So it will be beneficial to have puppets actually.
Brilliant. And then AI stopping producing air units, above the airfield thing, which just constantly irritated me. Was looking at the AI's build queue with like the spy tab, and just looking at the air units, just crying internally.
It was ironically the country who suffered from this the most was Russia, because they start already with like 300 planes, and they have only like a few more air bases than this.
Oh, I see. And then they were just stuck in a perpetual loop.
So if AI was building like some extra planes, which it did, then it was already like far over the limit of it should actually have and what it can repair efficiently.
Right, I see. I mean, to be honest, it makes a lot of sense. So I'm glad that's been changed. But as I say, I imagine that when you release this, there'll be a new version of a changelog. I believe you post that to the forum most of the time. Oh,
it will be nice wall of text.
Yeah, a big wall of text. Yeah. But this video was to somewhat summarize, some of the major things. Thanks everyone for watching the video. Leave your comments below if there's any sort of feedback that you want to give after listening to this discussion about any of the changes. There's going to be a link to the forum down below to download the mod. And I'm going to include a link to the main forum page as well on there, so that you can ask any questions on the forums. But I think, to be honest, leaving comments in the YouTube channel might actually be a little bit easier than posting in the forums, to be completely honest.
I'm going back to work soon, so I'll be on forums all the time, basically.
Well, there you go. But either way, I'm sure OMG is happy to answer your questions in the comments, and I'll be around as well. Although I probably won't be any good at answering any questions in relation to the mod. That's for sure. But thanks OMG for joining me. Is there anything that you just wanted to say as well? On top of that, I mean, there is a Patreon link. Do you want to plug that?
Yeah, plug that in.
So yeah, there's also going to be a Patreon link in the description.